No idea why I did this, but here we are. So today we are commemorating the memory of Saint Gregory Palamas, Archbishop of Thessaloniki in the 13th, 14th centuries. Prior to that, he was a monk of Athos, where he was schooled in the practice and theology of the prayer of the heart, the contemplative practice of the Jesus prayer, which later became the focus of theological controversy where he was involved. And I'm just going to preface this by saying that I'm not by any means an authority or even a scholar of Palamite theology. What I know about Gregory Palamas and the Palamite controversy, it's primarily through here, through the times when we commemorate him during Great Lent. But what I find interesting is that our hymns refer to St. Gregory as the preacher of grace, because what's central to what he taught and what was later affirmed by but certainly by the Eastern Church, was that God, even though God is unknowable to us in essence, he makes himself known to us through his energies. And energies is, to put it simply, God at work in the universe, in this world, in the here and now. And so, in today's gospel reading, the account from Mark that we just heard, we see one example of God at work in the world. Christ heals a paralytic man, tells him your sins are forgiven. The man gets up and walks. And we have been given this fairly upfront example of God at work. Christ God heals. Christ God forgives sins. But because our God is infinitely creative, there's also another example of God's grace at work there. The four men that bring the paralytic to Christ. I've heard interpretations or readings of this of the story saying that those four men were his friends. Were okay, fine. But for me, it would be even more impressive if those four men were just random strangers who came upon this paralytic on the road. They had heard that Jesus was in town, and all of the sick were coming to him, and they're like, "Well, we got this guy here. Well, we're here. Let's bring him along and see if Jesus can help him." And so that would make it a little more powerful, a much more powerful example. If they had no emotional ties to the paralytic, they didn't even know the guy at all. They just saw him, they saw his suffering, they were moved by his suffering and said, yes, let's all band together and bring him to Jesus. And they were moved enough that they would damage somebody else's house in order to bring this man to Jesus' feet. And so what we have here in this gospel then is examples of God's energies. God at work both directly and indirectly. And so for me, what the most powerful thing about what St. Gregory teaches is that the God who is, in essence, unknown to us, we can never reach God in an intellectual manner, still comes to us because of infinite love, because of infinite mercy, that he still comes and he's still present among us, and he continues to use the words of Ignatius of Loyola, he continues to create and labor on our behalf. And so I think this is kind of like the point. It's a reminder too. It's the point of the Christian life, is ultimately, for us at least here in Byzantium, as it were, the point of our life as Christians is ultimately to be united with God, theosis, to be unified with God, that God became man so we can become like God. And the problem with St. Gregory's opponents, Barlaam, Calabria, and I'm trying to be charitable to him here, because Barlaam was very much influenced by negative theology, saying that the unknowability of God, that there's really nothing we can say about God, which is true, but at the same time we have to say something in order to proclaim the gospel. The problem with Barlaam's approach, when he just states that God is unknowable, is completely other, well, then what? We can't imitate a God who is entirely other. We cannot be disciples of a God that is entirely unknowable. And so for St. Gregory and for the church who affirmed his teachings, God, they rejected that. They said, no, God can be known to us. God makes himself known to us through his energies. And what's more, because God makes himself known to us, he makes us partakers of his divine life. And that's what he says in that passage from John that we also heard today, that he comes, that he came, and he comes, he continues to come to us in order that we may have life and we may have it to the fullest. That right there is salvation. So, to wrap up, this is why we take the time to commemorate St. Gregory Palamas, this Sunday of Lent. Just like last Sunday, when we affirmed that through the images, God, because of the incarnation, allowed himself to be depicted, to be represented. Today, we profess that the unseen one, the unknowable one, allows himself to be known to us. And St. Gregory reminds us that God is the Lord and has revealed himself to us so that we may have life and we may have it to the fullest. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.